Hello there, you're watching and listening to another ScoutCast on www.fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, and my name is Mark.
My name's John T.
And I'm Disabled, or Luke.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. God, I don't know what time. It's been so long since we did this, I'm losing the whole sense of time. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the ScoutCast. No Granville tonight, John.
No, he's too ill again.
Well, he's saying he's ill, but The Apprentice starts tonight. I've got a feeling he's a big Apprentice fan. I reckon he's watching Alan Sugar. Either that, or he did say he couldn't stand to be on the show and listen to you rattling on about game week 8 all the time.
Yeah, I've got a thing about it, and I think a lot of people have though now after another sensational game week 8.
Indeed, we're going to have a job with the Scoutcast bingo tonight. I think there's going to be a lot of full houses.
Well, we've had me talking about game week 8. We're a few seconds in. Game week 8's got to mention. Granville's illness has got to mention.
Here we go.
And a bit later, I'll be mentioning a couple of Liverpool strikers from yesteryear.
You've just got to do it, haven't you? Luke, I don't know why you bother, but thanks for joining the show and stepping in for Granville. You've got to listen to John T going on about that. How terribly tedious. Never mind. I'm sure you're going to enjoy your stay. Thanks for stepping in again for Granville at the last minute. It's always good to have you on the show. Tonight we've got a lot to discuss, the three of us. Aguero obviously went absolutely explosive best. It's what we expected. Well, we didn't really expect that, but we expected him to start getting goals, and he did it in style, and he just happened to do it in game week 8. We've got to talk about that. Yeah. But how it's all changed in the matter of a week. Suddenly our elation has turned into, well, not so much disappointment, but desperation, with flags all over the shop. I've got about 5. I'm sure you guys have got a lot. There's probably a lot of flags out there, a lot of hits being spent, so we've got plenty to discuss there. We've got to discuss the Aguero replacement. It looks like he's out for at least 6 weeks. That's the talk. 7 weeks he's talked about today. Who knows? We're going to go through those replacements one by one. We're going to look at some stats behind them. We're going to talk about the questions from the community, which involves how many hits we take, where do we spend the money, and so on. We've got 2 managers to talk about as well. Jurgen Klopp and my favourite, John T. Big Sam's back. Yeah,
he's not a favourite amongst fantasy football managers because his games tend to be a bit boring and a bit kind of one-directional in terms of playing the percentages and hoofing the ball up to the big lad up front. But having said that, in his career, he's had the likes of Okocha, and he did wonders for Stuart Downing.
Yeah, he always rolls Okocha out, doesn't he?
There's always one flair player that emerges, and there's obviously one big bloke who really annoys people near the goal.
Yeah, look, for every JJ Okocha, there's a Kevin Nolan. Let's face it.
Kevin Nolan, and I was reading actually this morning. There was talk that he may indeed be looking to sign Kevin Nolan.
I called that. As soon as he got the job, I was like, I Wikipedia'd Kevin Nolan to see if he was still a free agent, because I thought he was. I didn't hear about anyone picking him up. And a minute I saw that, I was like, oh, that's inevitable, isn't it? It's going to happen, isn't it? No doubt about it. We'll talk about Big Sam. Jurgen Klopp really should get more of our airtime, really, because he's far more interesting, and we hope going to have far bigger impact on things. I've done a bit of research into him, plenty to talk about with him. So yeah, lots to cover in the Scoutcast after the international break, which is nice. But it seems like we've been away a long time. Luke, does it? I mean, it feels like weeks for me.
It definitely does, yeah. Like you put it well there, the elation to begin with after the massive point scores all round and the Aguero 5 goal does seem a long way away now, doesn't it? Especially with all these injuries. So yeah, I think just looking forward to it now, I suppose, like everyone. Just can't wait for the game week to come, and hopefully it'll be a bit more positive, as at the moment the flags are all over the place, like you said.
Indeed, more flags than a semaphore convention. So yeah, you can use that one if you like later, John T. Okay, so we should talk about Granville's game week. I know he's not here, but we should talk about it. The reason why we should talk about it is because he did worse out of all of them. So yeah, we should definitely do that. So let's talk about 97 points. He came the lowest out of all of the contributors, out of us 4 basically. Yeah. So we got to dwell on that, haven't we? Because he's been doing well recently, so it's nice to beat him, John T, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think he didn't do anything particularly wrong. He got the key move right, which was Aguero. But I think he's there. He's there or thereabouts. I mean, he only got. I got 102, but I actually took a hit, so he only got 1 point less than me. So he was, he was there, getting a good score. But like a lot of us, his defence let him down, and it was nice to see Darmian's -1 coming on off the bench for him. Quite enjoyed that.
the error he made, he went Perez, didn't he? Iosi Perez at Newcastle, which was a maverick move, and you've got to take your hat off to him for doing that, because I don't know if he could have done Vardy. Could he have done Vardy? Could he afford it?
He couldn't have done Vardy because he foolishly got Zuma in the week before. And so Zuma, of course, now massive rotation risk, and so that meant that he couldn't afford Vardy, who was the prime person to get in last week. And as it showed, it was the guy I got in got 9 points. So very, very pleased with that.
Probably could have got Igalo though, couldn't he?
He could have got Igalo, yeah. And in fact, he didn't. I mean, to be fair to him, he was saying that he was on his watch list to get in, and I don't know what was going through his thought process, why he suddenly went back. He's probably looked at Newcastle's fixtures. I noticed that Andy85, another of our contributors, actually got Mitrovic in, the Newcastle striker, who scored against Man City.
And stayed on the pitch.
Stayed on the pitch. He's known for being quite a fiery player, so that was quite amazing. So he's got him in place, and he could actually be quite a cheeky punt in the next few weeks.
Although probably not an Aguero replacement, but maybe. Got to go back to your point. Zuma rotation risk. Did you see Chelsea against Southampton?
Yeah. I mean,
rotation risk now, I wouldn't have said.
Well, I have to see. Yeah, but they're bad. All of them would be bad.
I know, but I mean,
I would say the entire Chelsea team is a rotation risk.
John Terry's performance against Southampton. Well, I mean, Terry may well start against Villa because of Ivanovic's injury. And anyway, that's good news for the Chelsea defence. Ivanovic isn't going to play on Saturday, so I think Zuma will be all right. I think he's got to play him.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to be replacing Ivanovic? Will probably be is it Rahman they've got there?
It could be, but he's talking about playing Zuma right back.
Oh really? Yeah. Well, then suddenly I'll take it all back with Zuma. So if he's in that kind of slightly more attacking role, there could be some returns there. He has scored this season.
It's not that low, is it? I mean, Terry, he was so exposed. I remember we said before last week, before the weekend, I said about, I hope Zuma does play. I hope that Marino considers Mane's pace and when he's choosing his centre backs. And he clearly went for the sentimental, I've got to play Terry. Home game, the fans are calling for him back in the team. He got massively exposed, didn't he, by Mane? He was just brilliant on the day.
I mean, my two moves during the week was to get Vardy in, and I took a hit at 11:26, so 10 minutes before it all. Before the deadline, and I actually it was thanks to Daniel, one of the regulars, Fantasy Football Scout. He was watching Chelsea TV, of which Mourinho was talking about the players that he's essentially promised a game, and I was looking at that, and it just didn't seem that Pedro had a role. He was listing all these players. I was thinking, so Pedro to me was looking like a massive doubt to start. So I kind of did a slightly panicky move, but I thought I'm going to get a player in that I think I'm going to want for the next few games, and actually has a good record of scoring against Arsenal. So I got Juan Mata in, who didn't actually pay me back that week, but I'm very happy to have him in. And I've got rid of Pedro, who I think now is a rotation risk, probably for the foreseeable until their form.
It looks that way. You took a hit, got 102 points for the game week. Luke and I both came out of it with 103. Luke, you took a hit as well, didn't you? What did you do there then?
I can't even remember. What did I do? Hold on a second.
It's so long ago.
I know, it is, isn't
Where did you spend your points hit last week? So
I think...
Was it Walcott came in for you?
That was what it was, yeah. I brought Walcott in for a hit. Yaya Toure got the injury.
You styled that a bit. Walcott in for 9 points to Toure.
Yeah, just really fancied him. I think he looks like he's pretty secure now, doesn't he? Although maybe this week's probably the ropiest out of all we've seen so far in recent times. But I'm really happy to have him in. He looks the real deal yet again.
So let's have a flag count then. I've got 5. Do I win this? Let's have a look. Granville's got 3, 4. How many have you got there, Luke?
I have got...
You've got 3 by the looks of it.
Yes.
And John T, you've got 4.
I've got 4. They're nicely colour coded. I've got, they range from red to yellow to orange to, all the colours of panic.
Yeah, well, my disastrous day for me today, because Elphick and Gomez just basically look like they're out for weeks and weeks and weeks. So both my yellows turned to red today, more or less. It's a bad situation, isn't it? I mean, we've gone from that game where we've got 3 figures, most of us, And the Fantasy Football Scout League's done very well. It's back on the top of the leagues, first time in the season so far, and it's game week 8 again.
Yes.
And now we're looking forward with optimism, but with so much to do. But we should talk about game week 8 again, because I mean Aguero did it, didn't he, last season? He got 4 goals against Spurs, and he went into that game, last weekend, and we expected him to do well against Newcastle, but 5 goals, it was just incredible, wasn't it? I mean, where were you when the goals were going in? Were you at home, Jonty?
Yeah, I was at home. I was just listening to it on the radio, and goal goes in, and then I'm just potting around. I was doing a bit of decorating actually. I was just listening to it, and there was another one. I was thinking, this is great, and but I was also aware that De Bruyne was racking up the assists, and I didn't have him in my FPL side. And I'm aware that he's quite well owned by a lot of the fantasy football scout community. So I was aware that for each goal and each assist there, it was actually kind of coming down a peg. But it was great, and I go on about game week 8 last year, and I have to again, because it wasn't just Aguero.
No, it was Pella again, wasn't it?
It was Southampton in general. Southampton swept aside a team. Now last year it was Sunderland. They swept them aside. So we had the likes of Pella. Last year I had Pella and Tadic and one of their defenders, and it was fantastic. This week as well, anyone who had Pella as well, and then Mane as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Tadic came very close. I think his owners could be unlucky, and I do applaud people who got Tadic in. I thought I think I got this right. He was going in against Ivanovic essentially. So he was going in against the weakest link possible in the Chelsea defence. So I thought he would do, but anyway, Southampton did well, and that was the key to the week really. And this is why the fantasy football scout community is the league is top in FPL, because if you look around the kind of general population of playing FPL, they probably wouldn't have had that combination of Southampton players. They perhaps might not have had Pella, and in fact a lot have now. His ownership shot up. But and there was those kinds of things as well, but also Walcott as well. So a lot of the fantasy football scout community, like Lee, were going back to Walcott, and a lot of the general managers weren't really. So that was another boost there. So yeah,
I think it's Aguero and Sanchez, which is surprising. It just seems like our community were willing to obviously got Aguero and Sanchez and start a lot of people, and were willing to just be patient with him. And whereas everyone else were looking at Payet, Mahrez, Ayew, and a lot of us have got those players as well, but neglecting their big heavy hitters.
Well, for 7 weeks it's worked out for those people that are above us, isn't it? By default, the fact that they've not been captaining those players is why they're above us in the first place. And suddenly it switches around all in one game week where it finally comes true. That's the big shift, I think. I think you find, I mean, even in our Contributors League, I think virtually everyone captained Aguero, maybe 1 or 2 didn't, and I imagine it's the same for most Fantasy Football Scout members.
Yeah, and just as we thought the captaincy was a foregone conclusion now for most of the season.
Yeah.
His hamstring. This is it. It just seems to Aguero that if he's full pelt for about 10 weeks every season, but in that window his chances of getting injured just seem to be so high. It's such a shame for him as a player, because I've no doubt he'll come back. But the trouble is, even when he comes back, it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks for us to kind of trust him again. Well, it's not like we can't hold him. And even when he's back fit in November, if it is November, it's going to be Christmas really until we start going, okay, it looks like he's back amongst the goals and he's fit again. But then it's cold, and you think, lots of matches, cold weather, is his hamstring going to go again, rest and rotation? Maybe he's dead to us for a while. Maybe it won't be until next year till we start trusting him again.
I mean, I think a lesson I learned last year, I got him back too early. As soon as Aguero was fit, got him in, and it took him 2 or 3 weeks to really get going. And it's taken him that long this season as well, to get going from a busy summer.
Hasn't always been the case with him though, is it? Still that slight worry that he will just come back and
it's that fear factor. But I mean, I think I could leave it a week. When he comes back, I might leave. It just depends who we get in. If we get the assisters in, like if I got De Bruyne in, I think he would be a good backup while we wait and see how Aguero's hamstrings perform.
I think the perfect situation would be that he sort of makes the bench. Is it the Liverpool game before the international break? I think it might.
So, yeah.
If he makes the bench for that one, or he's rumoured to be there or thereabouts, then you've got that 2 weeks, haven't you, for the international break, where you like to think if he's not on any international duty himself, he should be able to get himself prepared.
A Liverpool game is after the international break on the 21st. Before that, they face Villa away on the 8th of November. Is he going to make that? I mean, and then, but as I say, then you start getting into December where it's so many matches, and I know they haven't got Champions League during that spell, but even so, you think they're not going to take risks with him. That Liverpool game will be one he's targeting, I imagine. You're right, Luke. But I don't know, it's so tricky because we're going to talk about this in a minute. When we're looking at replacements and you're looking at the amount of money that suddenly Aguero frees up, are you really going to sit there and go, right, give yourself the option to get him back quickly, because you're going to end up spending that money, and then all of a sudden to get him back in, unless you've got your wild card, you're talking hits, major surgery.
I mean, the way... Yeah.
Go on, Joe.
No, I was going to say with Aguero, if he comes back and he is the player that we think he is, and he's going to get 5 goals, then I'll spend 4 points. I mean, if he's going to get you 50 points occasionally. It's not
going to happen again, though, is it? Sure.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to wait. Well, I'll wait till next game week 8 next year. He will. But no, I think if he's the player we think he is, in that he's going to be consistently scoring, then that's the player that's very worth getting a hit in. Lots of people this week were taking hits to perhaps get a player like, say, Walcott in, or Sanchez, or even Aguero, and that really paid off in the last game week. So if you're getting those top premium players, I think a hit's very worthwhile.
Most definitely. Top goal scorer last season. Looks like he could do it again, even if he gets a limited amount of games. I don't see anyone else outscoring him.
I think it's going to depend on how you set your team up, because you're going to have to find 5, maybe 6 million. So it may even take more than one transfer. And I'm in a situation where I've got Hazard at the moment, which actually looks good now, because if I didn't have Hazard, I'd had so much money, and then I'd probably have to make 3 or 4 transfers in the next couple of weeks to use that money up and exploit it. At least with Hazard, I've potentially got a captaincy option next week or the weekend, and I've got a player I can convert into money if I want to get Aguero back. But it needs to be someone of that, that kind of price to get the money back, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think he's 2 players, isn't he, Aguero? He's 2 players worth. The 13 million is huge, and then you've got lots of options in midfield and attack. I mean, you can upgrade. I mean, I was looking at the options I could do. I could get a player in, a good striker in for Aguero, and I could upgrade Houlihan to De Bruyne without breaking sweat and having $1 million left over. I mean, this is money bags time.
I think it's going to be one of those try and keep 2 transfers for the international break, isn't it? It may take 3 to get him in, but as long as you've got those 2, obviously, with the way injuries are going on at the moment, you can't say that's going to be possible, but hopefully it is, and I think that's going to give you the best opportunity of being able to get him in.
Well, let's look at some of the replacements. There's a lot of names out there. I think Rod DeLagerbomb did a really good article a couple of weeks ago. Well, just soon after the injury, looking at replacements, and some of the names that he looked at: Pella, Bonney, Lukaku, Costa, Sturridge, Kane, Martial is a player who we didn't list, but for those who haven't got him, obviously Martial is going to be one to consider. Now, Pella's top of that list. We've talked about his form. I mean, the stats kind of back it up, don't they, Joe?
They do. I mean, they not just back it up in general. For you look at the fixtures that he's got as well. I mean, immediately, if we look at Leicester coming up, now Southampton have made 207 crosses this season. They're second for crosses, and nearly getting on for 3 out of 10 of them are being successful as well. That's actually first. They're top for that, and so they're putting in those crosses. Leicester, who they're up next against, have conceded 23 headed goal attempts. And then Pella is doing pretty well for headed goal attempts as well. Plus, we know that he's a really potent threat at home as well. So, he has got, it'd be no surprise, he is my absolute top choice for this, but he's got Leicester at home, then Liverpool away, Bournemouth at home, Sunderland away, Stoke at home. I mean, that's the next 5. Wow. I mean, they're great fixtures, and he's got great form. Looking at it, the last 4 game weeks or so, 15 shots in the box. This is, he's got, he's with 15 goal attempts, 15 shots in the box. How's good that for a striker?
Yeah, most of them are crosses, aren't they? On the end of crosses from Tadic, all Prowse,
he's getting the assists now as well.
He's linking up well. He's in fine form, scoring goals for Italy as well. The evidence in his favour is huge, but I'll put Wilfred Bonney into the mix because I mean I'm looking at the stats here. Pella's had a shot every 21.9 minutes so far this season. Aguero is 16.9. Bonney 21.4. He's only played 235 minutes, so 6 appearances. He's been limited in terms of his opportunities. But when he's in that City side, he does get opportunities. And if you look at Aguero's goals against Newcastle, there's only really one of those you think, well, Bonney probably wouldn't have tucked that away. I mean, if you give Bonney the chances that Aguero got in that match, he would have converted 2 or 3 of those as well, wouldn't he?
I wonder whether he'll start, though. I know it sounds crazy, but now I just cannot. This is another ScoutCast bingo moment where I will not be able to pronounce Man City's other striker, Iheanacho.
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
I think I'll go with that.
You left it to me. I'm the expert on these.
He is not available in Champions League. They play Champions League next week, so it's an important game. So he's going to want, if Bonney is injured or not available for that, then Pellegrini's going into that game with no strikers. So what will he do? So possibly Sterling up front. Then I mean you're getting down to square pegs, round holes, and think situations like that, which they're not going to want. So I actually wonder whether Bonney is going to do 60 minutes, whether he'll start and he'll come off after 60, or
I think it's pretty much certain that Bonney will play. I think 60 or 70 minutes quite often would be a regular thing for him. It seems to be that way, doesn't it? He seems to never quite had the fitness since he's joined City.
Well, even when he was at Swansea, he was getting that. Do you remember when he first started? He couldn't get in the team, and then he was getting subbed off. I mean, Gomez was obviously an option, so.
And also, he hasn't had the game time, so he's perhaps lacking a bit of. I mean, basically, I look at Pella, and then I look with form, fixtures, everything going in his favour. I look at Bonney, and all these little question marks are arising, and I just think.
The thing with Bonney is, I think he was brought in initially as that to play in that 4-4-2 system. But at the time when he signed him, if you remember, he was playing 4-4-2, and Negredo had just moved on. I think he really fancied him and he wanted to play it. But it was just at that same sort of time that Aguero started performing really well as the lone striker, and everyone was telling him, "You need to be playing 4-5-1. You've just been thrashed again in the Champions League." And he seemed to sort of switch at that exact time. And I think Bonney's been suffering from that ever since. I do think though now Aguero's out, he's going to be straight in. I can't see how he'll play.
No, I mean the only issue with it is that the minute Aguero comes back, Bonney's going to be out of the team.
Yeah.
What'll happen then is that you haven't got that time then to go, okay, let's see how Aguero settles in. I'm going to leave it a month until I get him because you'll have no Bonney. So
exactly. If
you do get Bonney, you've got to be prepared for that straight swap as soon as Aguero's fit.
And even in the past, when Aguero's been out before, everyone's tried it, haven't they? They've tried the Zeko route, they've tried the Jovetic route, they've tried the Negredo route. We've all done it, we've all been guilty. It all looks brilliant on paper.
Hey, I love the Zeko route. It's so lovely, that play.
And it just rarely works, does it? It just rarely works. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to work. In fact, it was only towards the end of, was it last season, towards the end of last season, when Zeko actually put a decent run together and won on the title.
Wasn't Zeko that infamous moment where Aguero was out and everyone got Zeko in, and then he got injured in the warm-up?
Yes, yep. I was there for that one. Thanks very much for reminding me. So, I mean, let's have a look at further names down this list. Yeah. We've got to mention Lukaku, I guess, everyone's favourite troll. It's just, it's tempting though, isn't it? Despite the fact that he frustrates us so often.
He's scoring in the tough games, but he's still yet to prove himself against the very top teams. But there is a subjective argument there. What is the top team this season? Is Leicester?
Scored a hat-trick against Man United.
But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if it's looking at that. Whether he's, is Man U a top team? Well, yeah, I mean.
It saves you a transfer, doesn't it? That's the main thing. If you bring him in now, it's saving you a transfer that I think most will be looking to make.
I think looking at Everton's fixtures, game week 11, they look absolutely brilliant. I'd be looking at getting an Everton player in. Barkley and Lukaku look the obvious ones, and it's kind of getting him in. I mean, a bit like when I got Mata in last week, I was kind of getting him in a bit early, really. Looking at Man U have a similar thing. Great run of fixtures from game week 11. I think if you're planning ahead and you don't mind being slightly disappointed.
Well, this is it. He trolls us so much, doesn't he? It's so hard to trust him. I want to. He is. I mean, I rate him, and he's one of my favourite players at his best. I think.
Maybe we should just put that behind us, though. Look at his form. I know the fixtures have been tough, but you can't argue with that form so far. No. It's all written there.
5 goals in the 8 games so far, and a shot every 29.9 minutes. Yeah. And he'll get chances of Barkley in form. And like you say, the fixtures from game at 11, but he can do it against United and Arsenal as well. There's no doubt. He can wreak havoc in those defences.
Imagine you'd never played fantasy football before at all, and this is your first season. You would no-brainer bring Lukaku in, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
Sturridge? No, don't think so.
Yeah, no, I think Sturridge. I think because I'm sure we'll come to this with the Klopp factor. It's a bit of an unknown once again for me. Question marks there, so I would give it a game or two, but I think he is possibly a very good replacement and a good player to have there. He could be spearheading a very attacking Liverpool side. They haven't really got the fixtures to back it up. They got Tottenham away, then Southampton at home, then Chelsea, Palace I suppose is quite good, and then Man City. And then Swansea, you don't know how that's going to go. But he's had pretty good form, really. So he's had 3 starts and obviously a sub-appearance and 2 goals out of that. So that's pretty good. He's had 5 shots on target in that time as well, which stands up, with the likes of Pella and Lukaku. So he's definitely got the underlying stats. I just don't think he quite has the fixtures.
His goals per minutes have never been in question, have they? Really?
No,
they've never been in question.
Fitness, isn't it? Do you go from Aguero's hamstrings to Sturridge? Well, just about everything is a doubt with Sturridge, isn't it? He could end you anywhere. So,
Sturridge has the history like Aguero does, so you know what you're getting. I mean, if you're going to get Sturridge, you have to buy into the fact that you could be getting a player that will get subbed off after 10 minutes with an injury that will keep him out for 2 months. That's what you buy.
Well, we'll talk about it later, but he's not even sure of where he's going to play as well. One last name to consider, Diego Costa. Look at this, though. He's had 6 appearances this season, 49 minutes per effort on goal, which is an extraordinary, decline in his rate. And it's a worry, isn't it? I mean, people are talking about taking a risk on him, though.
Well, I think with Costa, people are looking at the price tag. They're looking at last season. They're looking that he plays for Chelsea. Same reasons you got Hazard in a couple of weeks ago. You're looking at Chelsea. They'll get, and people thinking, Costa will get me out of this situation. The things that are the unknowns, though, that are quite positive in his favour. He's come out and basically said, "Yeah, I was really fat." So, I mean, more or less. Obviously, I paraphrase from the original Spanish, but he was basically saying, "Yeah, I was a real state. Had far too many pies. I'm off them now. I've been working really hard. I'm ready for it." So if you buy into the theory that Chelsea are an absolute top team and they're going to completely turn it around and they're going to put Villa to the sword, then get Costa in.
It's a risk again though because he's injury prone too.
I was going to say. Exactly. At least he's got the fixtures.
He's got the fixtures, and allegedly he has no longer got the belly. So
If he can work that off in 2 weeks, I want to know what programme he's on.
Yeah, amazing. The Costa diet. He eats centre-backs' arms and legs, doesn't he, normally? I think that's his diet. Okay, looking at minutes, I'll tell you what, I looked at minutes per chance, and I put Martial on this list, not really because a lot of people are going to consider him for an Aguero replacement, because a lot of people have got him already and wouldn't even consider him. We don't have him, John T.
No.
His shots every 52 minutes. That was a real shock to me. He's only had 6 efforts, 314 minutes.
Wasn't a shock to me. I watch Man United all the time, being a fan. We never show.
So, what do you make of him? Because Granville's a bit biased here. He got him in early before all the fuss was whipped up. Have you got him in any of your teams?
I haven't got him in any of my teams, no. Being from the old school kind of fixture base a little bit more, I think, than quite a lot of people. Those fixtures didn't do it for me, and just general Man United attacking returns, part of the reason why I've been relatively successful over the last few seasons, I think, is ignoring Man United attacking returns. It served me quite well because we've been diabolical in that area for the majority of them. He's certainly got the talent, and he looks like the only player who could, well, aside from Mata, who could potentially make things happen, but like you said, a shot every 52 minutes, probability-wise, it's not looking great for him, is it? He's got to have a great conversion rate there.
Well, he has had so far. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, exactly.
He's got to up that though. He's got to get more opportunities in the box, and we said that could be the danger. But the fixtures are against him, certainly for the next 2. I know, Joe, you've said about his fixtures in game week 11, but Everton City. Everton, City, Palace, West Brom, Watford. I still think those are fairly tough.
City, I think, is up in the air. I'm not quite sure what could happen there. Everton, I don't think is good. I mean, I got Mata in. I actually thought they would do well. They do have a good record against Arsenal, and Arsenal have historically capitulated against kind of rivals. I was having this conversation actually with one of our regular posters, Giggs Boson, who has constructed one of the members table in the members section of the site, and he was looking at, it's a kind of a goals imminent type table, so we're looking at things like chances but not scoring a lot, or and he called his lethal or imposter, and what he was looking at, he said players that have actually recently scored a number of goals but from actually a few amount of chances and shots on target. So Martial has done very well in terms of scoring goals, and Mata has done very well. Don't forget, game week 7, I think he was on 14 points, and I think he's got a 50% involvement rate in Manchester United's goals. So what was interesting about his table is that Martial and Mata were really high in his table, and what that shows is depending on which way you're coming at it, either they're very, very good players and they take their chances, they don't get many, but they take them. And if you buy into that theory, then Martial and Mata are great. If you think, well, that Man U are not creating a lot of chances and surely there'll be some kind of regression, then they're ones to avoid.
I think less so on Mata because he's always got the assist and he's proven, whereas Martial, as I've said before, 19 years old, just don't know where it's going to happen. But I think he'll prove me wrong, and I think I will warn him eventually, but
yeah,
we'll see. Okay, let's move on to the community questions, John T. We've got 3 or 4 people talking about hits. A lot of hits being thrown around, not surprisingly as a result of the injuries. Yeah. So who's brought this up on the community in the last few days?
Supersonic, who incidentally was the community's champion in last week's game Scout picks.
We spanked him, didn't we?
It was a huge victory that he's going to absolutely love me talking about. We got 38 points over him. Because he went without Aguero. We just absolutely hammered that week. And
we've got to dwell on that because I think we're losing 7-2. I think now.
Yes, yeah. In terms of
6-2
quantity, we haven't quite got the victories, but it was a quality victory last week. But anyway, so Supersonic, he asks, what do you think the average hit tally taken will be? And Spectrum also asks, what's an acceptable level of hits? And then Sparta Boy, much more specific about the coming game week with all the injuries, with so many taking hits. Does it actually encourage you to take some surgery?
Well, this is it. I mean, are we agreed that 4 is going to be the minimum? Everyone's going to take a 4-point hit. Is that right?
I think. Well, I'm personally not going to take a hit, but I could do. And what Sparta Boy is mentioning there is what's actually prompting me, because I probably know that in all my mini leagues and a lot of people who are in the kinds of rankings that I'd like to be in, I know they'll probably take a hit or 2. So I know this is a good chance. I've only got 2 defenders I think are going to play, and I actually don't want them to play. Micah Richards against Chelsea and Darmian against Everton. I don't want them to play, and that's it. I've got Kolarov, and I've got Ward, who's definitely out, and Johnny Evans, who could play. So the way I'm looking at it, instead of hits, I think we should be asking a bit broader about how do we use all of the tools available to us in Fantasy Premier League. Underneath my name, I've got Chips Ahoy. I'm going to use one of my chips this week. I think I'm going to use the all-out attack chip. I think it's absolutely tailor-made for this moment, where I'm probably going to have only 2 defenders. In Ward and Evans, I've got defenders who will probably come back from injury. He'll be fine. So it saves me that hit there, and I think more people should be perhaps considering that if they hadn't used it. But yes, I think overall, if you are going to take a hit, take one this week because everyone else will.
So you got Houlihan at Newcastle, so you're going to start him. Whereas I could do the same. I was looking at that because I've got Zuma who will play, I think, Kolarov who looks like he's going to, and that's it. I've got nothing else in defence. Still, I've got Micah Richards at Chelsea. Could
all our attack chip could be.
Yeah, but then I've got Albrighton at Southampton, who's not necessarily going to start. Maybe he will. I don't know. He should do, maybe. But it's you're right. Yeah, I could do that and not take a hit. Which
but you think who would you rather play, Albrighton or Micah Richards? So you know. And the all-out attack chip, I think is not a great chip. I mean, you look at the triple captain, you think wow, but the all-out attack is not great. It's actually, I think it's great. It's good for these types of weeks. And if I end up wasting it and Houlihan doesn't play, well then so be it. You know, I don't think it's a great loss.
So, Luke, what about yourself? You've got, I mean, Niam of Watford is an injury doubt, might not pull through. Kolov should do. That leaves you with Francis, Williams and Wes Morgan at the back. Is that enough? You all right with that?
It's not great, is it? I'm looking at Bellerin for a hit. I personally think, yeah, that whole safety and numbers thing, if you think the majority of the sort of, you know, the active players, the people on Fantasy Football Scout are going to be looking at hits, that safety and numbers makes you feel a little bit better about it. And you know, taking a hit to maybe get Bellerin in, I know it's a risk because he may not play because of the Champions League. If you are of the mind that he will play, like I am, I think it's probably a good week to do it because Watford can't seem to score many goals and Arsenal are sort of really good at defending away at the moment. They seem to be keeping quite a few clean sheets. I think it's as close to a nailed-on clean sheet as you can get. So hopefully it will pay it back straight away.
Yeah, if Bellerin wasn't, if they didn't have Bayern on Tuesday, I'd be with you totally on that. I do think Bellerin's a bit of a doubt because of that.
It's definitely a risk.
Fine. But I mean, Bellerin's top of the watch list, and for me, yeah, I mean, people are going to want him in the next couple of weeks for sure because he looks like he's got that right back spot nailed down. But it's just this week, and it's the old adage: do you take a hit for a defender? Because I'm looking at it going, okay, well, I'll get Aguero out probably for Pella, right? Dullard move, but it seems to be the sensible route to take. I haven't got Mane. I need Southampton attacking coverage. So then I either play Richard, Zuma and Kolarov and risk that Kolarov might not play and I have one short defender and I've got Richards at Chelsea, or I play all out attack and play all Brighton, or I spend 4 points on a defender. And who can I bring in who's going to get me a clean sheet or more? I mean, I was looking at Jan Matt, but you know, Newcastle home to Norwich, you can't trust a Newcastle defence.
No.
It's a really tough situation, and Joe, I think you're right. So many people will be taking a hit, quite comforting to go, okay, I'll sit back and let them lose points. So there is two sides to this, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm thinking about how to get an advantage. I mean, see for example, if I took it, so yeah, I mean, same thing with me. Aguero out for Pella looks a no-brainer for me. I don't have him, so I've got Vardy and Gomez, and then I'm sitting there with 6 million in the bank, knowing that everyone's taking hits. So I could play an all-out attack chip and replace Houlihan with Kevin De Bruyne.
Exactly.
That suddenly gives me, it gives me for that game week a bit of an advantage. Having said that, it leaves me with Mahrez as my fifth midfielder and a complete benching headache for weeks to come. So I have to think of that as well. So I think if a hit for a defender is fine. But you're right. The defenders you'd be looking at, say Arsenal, with Bayern coming up, you don't know who's going to be starting. I'm actually, I've got Darmian. He had a shocker against Arsenal, but I'm more or less happy with him. I think Man U are going to be keeping a lot of clean sheets from game week 11 onwards. But I'd be looking at an Everton defender, whichever of their fullbacks is fit, or Jagielka's always handy for good bonus points and clean sheets, and a real dull player like I like.
So unsexy, isn't he, Jagielka?
But those are the players I'd be looking at. Real long-term moves of defence. So that if you're taking that hit, you might lose some points, but at least you're getting you're getting rid of a long-term injury victim, and you're getting a good player in. But
I mean, I could do all Brighton out, De Bruyne in, Pella in for Aguero, spend 4 points, but I'd have a 5-man midfield with De Bruyne, Hazard, Ayew, Sanchez.
Yeah,
and pretty good Mahrez. So I'm looking at that as a possible route.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
But then later down the line, you'll be looking to take one of those good players out and bring in maybe a 4.5, which is going to be a hard move to make, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So it's difficult. It's funny because the all-out attack chip, it doesn't look that beneficial, but it does give us some interesting variables to play with in this scenario.
It does, but it's for 1 week. That's the thing. And is that worth changing the whole structure of your squad for? I'm not sure.
Yeah. See, that's what puts me off slightly. Looking at Mahrez as the player, or Gomez the players to bench, when actually both have very good fixtures coming up.
There's no guarantees with it as well. I mean, playing an AOE like you, Mark, to play all Brighton, I mean, that doesn't sound amazing to me. Your defenders could very well outscore all Brighton. You just never know.
You don't know. I mean, for me, with Houlihan, this is why I got Houlihan in, to give me that choice. And I think if you've got a player like that, who's capable of actually racking up quite a good score, especially against a terrible team like Newcastle, then I think it is worth it for me. And I think that's definitely the option I'm looking at. But it is overall really it's time. Yeah, take a hit, do it now.
Okay, let's talk about Klopp and Allardyce then.
Yeah.
First of all, we'll talk about Mr. Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. Obviously, really exciting. People have said probably the most exciting managerial appointment in Premier League history, which could be the case. A lot of hype about it.
David Moyes, come on.
Well, it's Moyes, of course, yes. Yeah. Going to be enterprising attacking football he played. But yeah, we're expecting massive things on it. It's just a shame that Jurgen's got a terrible run of fixtures. Tottenham away, Southampton at home, Chelsea away, Palace at home, City away.
Yeah.
He's got it all cut out to do, make an instant impact. But everyone's expecting him to just revolutionise the way they play. And new players are going to come to the fore. Is that the way you see it, Luke? I mean, have you got your eye on their players all of a sudden?
Not really, to be honest. It's a hard one, isn't it? Because the new manager effect, we've seen it happen so many times through the seasons. Initially, it seems to really give a boost to quite a lot of teams, and it's happened so often before. It's hard not to see them improving, especially on the attacking input side of things, given his past managerial style as well. But like you say, the fixtures there, we've not actually seen him Liverpool play a match yet. So again, you just don't know if it's instantly going to click into place. He's still using the same players at the end of the day. I mean, it's been nicely timed with the Daniel Sturridge return. I don't know if that was planned at all, but he's only sort of just come back into the full. So I would have thought goals would have come more likely for Rodgers anyway if he was still here, just for the fact that Sturridge is playing. So I'm not sure. I'd at least want to see a game or two before I take the plunge in that direction.
It is a really good test, isn't it? Because if Klopp really has got a method of playing, that this pressing game that a lot of people have written about in the last week, if that really can transform play, add 10% to players, we're going to see it in these next 5 or 6 weeks because of the fixtures that Liverpool have got and the injuries they've got as well. Players like Firmino coming back, Benteke coming back, Sturridge is just about fit. I mean, Granville's got Coutinho there, and I think he's going to hold on to him because he could be a real asset, couldn't he?
I think Henderson, if it's the pressing game that he's looking to do, Henderson and Milner, you couldn't ask for better players to do that role, could you, really? So, eventually, I think, how long is Henderson out for? Is it still
he's going to be out till middle of next month, I think, at least. So I think he's out of the equation.
I would expect Liverpool's performance to improve quite considerably once he comes back. That's what I would have thought.
Yeah.
John, to yourself, you looking at any of their players?
I mean, Klopp's got the pedigree. I think there is a danger of people looking at his personality and thinking, "Wow, look, he's really interesting." So of course he's going to be really
don't
interesting.
fall for the maverick personality.
Yeah.
Wow, you've done it before with Sherwood, Johnny.
But he has got the pedigree though. Bundesliga wins 2011, 2012. Champions League final 2013, obviously German Football Manager of the Year 2011-2012 after winning it. So he's got that pedigree. I mean, Liverpool have got their most high-profile manager they've had in a long time. I'm discounting Dalglish from that because he obviously wasn't very good, but obviously Liverpool fans would say he's the most high-profile individual on the planet. But I think
the team though that he had.
Yeah,
Lewandowski up top alone,
Yeah. Yes, it's he had better players then. It's obviously a very different league. It sounds boring, but completely in agreement with Luke here. It's really good that we've got some time because they've got tricky fixtures to have a look at it and assess their options. And I agree, those like Granville who have Coutinho or those who've got Sturridge, keep them. Have a look. I can't see.
To consider maybe Klein and Moreno. He likes his fullbacks to push forward, and Moreno 4-7. Now that Gomez looks like he's going to be out for the season, that's a talk. Could be an option. Not yet, but in the next weeks. Let's talk Big Sam, one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Now you're not going to rattle off a load of trophies. He's one, I don't think, John T. But he could have a bigger impact, fancy terms, because we're expecting him to shore up this Sunderland defence. Is that possible? Is it really?
I think so. I think it is. He's going to need some players in. He's going to rely on O'Shea. O'Shea will be like his Winston Reid. Looking at now, one of our community regular writers, Inzi, did a piece on what he calls baseline bonus. So this is the bonus allocation with stripping out goals and assists. So it's looking at the nuts and bolts, the kind of blocks and interceptions and all of these things. And then Sunderland, no surprise, are one of those teams where one of the best performer there is not a defender at all, it's their goalkeeper. Pantilimon is the one to get there. I think that if we think that Big Sam is going to be getting the clean sheets, then Pantilimon is the one to get, because he's already know that he's very good at saving, so he's racking up those save points. So I think he's got some work to do at the Christmas transfer. The New Year, the January transfer window.
But he has got better fixtures than Klopp to play with. I mean, he's got West Brom, Newcastle next two. Where, those two are hardly prolific, so he could get clean sheets out of those two.
I mean, he said that's the thing he needs to address, and he's also spoken about Defoe, Fletcher, and Barini, saying if we can get, they've all got different attributes as strikers. They're all good strikers, for a relegation-threatened Premier League side, good Championship side, which is what Sunderland are. And so I think he's got it. I mean, there's other players. He does. Perhaps a Johnson, perhaps Larson. Like Larson strikes me as a really.
You do love Larson, don't you, John?
He's a really boring Big Sam player.
You got to put this in the ScoutCast bingo. So it's not often you get a chance to throw his name in, but
the problem with all those players you've just mentioned, maybe not so much with Larson, but those three strikers, none of them do anything defensively or work for the team. Especially if you're playing all three, which I think on occasion a previous manager did. It's not going to help out the defence at all, is it? And the way you're talking about Pantilimon as well, there being the best option, I think over the last few seasons, the way Sunderland have played, allowing teams to shoot from distance against him has really helped his cause. Whether Big Sam's going to address that straight away, I would have thought that would be something.
That's true.
And PVA, I don't think he's going to get a look in the way it's going.
I think
it's so hard to see who he's going to play, though, because it's not like we can go, he's nailed on, because O'Shea, Brown, Coates, Cabal, none of them fancy any of them. So Big Sam's walked in on, what do I do with this lot?
O'Shea was great at left back for Man United once upon a time.
If I was to take a punt on a Sunderland player, it would be Stephen Fletcher. I personally will never, ever get Stephen Fletcher.
Too injury prone.
Because he has lost me so much money in the past. But he is capable of getting hat-tricks and braces and doing well, and he's exactly the Big Sam team type player.
Yeah.
Big bloke, being annoying in the penalty box.
I think he was sniffing around Fletcher when he was at West Ham, actually.
Yeah.
So I think when fit, Fletcher will play and be on pen. So yeah, good shout, I think. Okay, let's move on then. Let's see. It'll be interesting to see how Sam does, and Klopp will be following them both in the coming weeks. We're doing a bit of analysis on their teams, no doubt. See if any assets come out of that. Now, Palm's got a really good question, hasn't he? You want to fire away with that one, Jonty?
Sorry, that's on
the fixtures.
On fixtures, yes. Are fixtures less important? He says. So he asks, given the improvement and competitive nature of a majority of the mid-table sides, so I guess we're talking kind of Leicester, Southampton, Swansea here, are fixtures becoming less of a factor in player selection?
Now this is it. Now I mean, like yourself, Luke, I'm a very much fixtures over form kind of guy, because I kind of think, well, form comes as a result of fixtures. Yes, form is important, but fixtures first, then you look at form. A lot of people go the other way. One of the reasons Jonty and I didn't get Martial because of fixtures, and yourself as well said that. So, but I do think he's onto something here with this.
Definitely. It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? Teams look a lot more competitive. Go back, to the early 2000s and 90s, and Man United beating teams like 8 and 9-0 and stuff. It doesn't look like it's really possible anymore, aside from obviously the City Newcastle result last week. But they're a lot more competitive. I'd say it's probably less of a factor. I'd agree with him there. I think he is onto something, especially in the attacking roles. Maybe not so much on the defensive side. I'd say defenders' fixtures are probably still relatively important. Just sort of targeting those little blocks, like we can see now. Chelsea's defence has been really poor form-wise, but fixture-wise, you'd have to fancy their defence to step it up over the next few. That's an example. I guess we'll see. But I'm in agreement with him there, to be honest. Definitely for attacking players, it seems.
I think what's happening is that there tends to be 2 or 3 teams where you go, well, they're the whipping boys at the moment. Sunderland, Newcastle in recent weeks. There'll probably be another spell where someone like Bournemouth might slip into it. Maybe Watford have a bad spell, and they'll become the team that you need to back against. But that's about it now. It used to be that you could look Liverpool versus Leicester and Liverpool versus West Brom and think, well, they're going to get 2 or 3 goals there. But West Brom know how to defend away from home. Leicester Leicester just not losing games. West Ham, look at them away from home. That's the other thing this season. It's been the teams getting results away from home.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Luke on the defensive aspect as well. I still think fixtures are king there. And if you look at the clean sheets this season already, they're already going by the book. We've got the 4 teams that have 4 clean sheets this season, and Man City, Arsenal, Man United and West Brom. So you've got 3 Champions League ones there, and then you've got West Brom, who under Pulis you'd expect that. So that's kind of going to form. And last season, by this time, it was actually quite tough, because only Southampton had 4 clean sheets. They were the only ones. And then the others who got 3 clean sheets that season, this were Burnley and Villa, who no one would predict.
Well, it shows you it's a lot down to the style of the manager, isn't it? Because at the very beginning of the season, everyone knew West Brom were going to get clean sheets. Everyone knew that. But they looked at their fixtures and they thought, I'm not getting a West Brom player. They're awful. But here we are. They're sitting there with 4 clean sheets.
But that's how we look at fixtures. So I personally would look at West Brom and look at the team in terms of will they score, will they keep a clean sheet? And there is an argument that even though their fixtures were tough, because it's Pulis and because of the way he plays, particularly against the tougher sides, it's actually, from a clean sheet point of view, they're actually quite easy games. What's tough, though, is they're not actually going to score. And that comes back to, which I guess what Palm's saying about the other teams. And yeah, you're looking at, we're reeling off the list of replacements for Aguero. So, we're women and ahhing about Costa. We think maybe not Sturridge, hardly anyone. Martial, Rooney's not even getting a mention. And what we're looking at is, and of course, Arsenal don't even actually have a viable striker. They have a viable midfielder who's playing as a striker. So the ones we're reading off are these mid-table sides who are capable of giving a right hiding to some teams like Southampton and Leicester can. So yeah, I agree with him. I think fixtures are really important, but I think the thing to do is taken a while to get to grips with. But we need to accept that the best strikers in fantasy football are possibly not the most expensive ones for the best sides.
No, that's the way it's turned out so far this season, that's for sure. And injuries don't help matters, do they? Doubling on attacking assets. Your mum's athletic asked this. Do you think doubling on attacking assets is a good strategy? A lot of people are hesitant to double up, especially with Southampton, Mane, Pella, Leicester, Mahrez, Vardy. Vardy was the one that recently came out. I've got Ayew and Gomez. That came up a few weeks back. I've actually got those 2. I've got Vardy and Mahrez, Ayew and Gomez, and it is something I look at it and go, well, if Swansea and Leicester don't score, my team's in real trouble, and it is a worry. But the trouble is, they're such viable assets, those 4 players, aren't they? And there's more. Like I say, Mane and Pele. What do you do there? Do you go them both?
Well, and up to Aguero's injury, Aguero and De Bruyne was looking absolutely lethal combination. Yeah,
but it's different, isn't it, when it's City, I think. When it's these teams in mid-table who Southampton, Swansea and Leicester can blank. Not so much Leicester perhaps, but certainly Swansea have really struggled. The last 3 weeks have struggled, and I've suffered as a result of that. And I've hung on to them because I'm hoping they're going to come out of it. They've got Stoke and Villa up next, so that looks good for me. But it's always a risk, isn't it? And you're going to hark on about 2 Liverpool players, aren't you?
Obviously this is get your ScoutCast bingo.
Yeah,
ready. Here it comes. A long time ago, I got Sturridge and Suarez in, and I never looked back.
See, that is 2 in the same position, which is more or less unknown, isn't it?
But that's really rare now, because most teams have 1 striker up front, and they don't have that. So the likes of those glory times are not going to come around again. I don't think. But is it worth it? I think it depends on the players. So, for example, with Southampton, with Pele and Mana, yes, it is, because who's scoring the goals, who's getting the assists? Well, it's basically those 2 with Tadic coming in and the odd player, but it's more or less those 2. So if you think they're going to score, then you're getting an assist and a goal there. I would say when Man U's fixtures improve, I think Mata and Martial could actually be quite good.
The thing that's just sort of in everyone's back of their mind, isn't it, that in a perfect world, let's say every player scores well in your team, you're limiting your potential, because at the end of the day, there's only 3 bonus points on offer. Yeah. So potentially, one of them could get 3, one of them could get 2. Great, but if you had the other player who got 3 from the other game, then you could get more. I know we're only talking very small amounts there, but that's what sits in your mind, isn't it? They're not going to have 2 starter players from the game, but. it can work, as we've seen.
If you follow fixtures and you've got two players like, say, Gomez and Ayew, or Mahrez and Vardy, and then fixtures turn, then that is quite tricky, because you've got a lot of investment in a team that you're not convinced is going to do well in that particular fixture. And I think with some of the bigger players, they're easier to get out and replace as well. Because once you get down to kind of Mahrez, if you're looking at fixtures, say if you've got Mahrez and Vardy, so a lot of people have Vardy now, and some people are starting to think with Mahrez, well, he tactically not played in the last game because of Norwich's pacey wingers. They're playing Southampton next. So if the Tinkerman thinks Norwich are too pacey for Mahrez, well, my God, that's the end of it, basically. So if you're thinking that he's not going to be playing, so who are you going to replace him with? Well, looking at the fixtures, Barkley absolutely tailor-made for that, but he's not. He's too. He's that bit more expensive.
I don't think you can get rid of Mahrez. I just think that was a one-off. That he tried something because they played with Jarvis and Redmond, and he expected them two to play. They didn't play Redmond in the end. He came on, so he thought, well, I've got two speedy wingers. I need to counter that, and I think that's what he did.
Well, so you're trying to put logic on a Claudio Ranieri decision.
Well, yeah, if I was a bit Ranieri, I'd look at that and go, wow, I got we got them down to just scoring the one goal, and we won.
His madness has worked in the past.
I think Mahrez and Vardy, you've got to play them away from home. They're your attacking threat, and I think he felt he had enough to beat Norwich. Against Southampton, he's going to go, we're going to need 2 goals, maybe 3, to get a result.
Yeah.
And it's probably right. It could be a goal fest. Yeah. And I think Mahrez will play. I think we talked about it on Palm's question about fixtures. Are they as important? Well, they are when you're doing this. When you're looking at it and going, okay, I've got 2 Swansea, 2 Leicester. Now, normally I would look at that and go, that's shaky. I've got to change that. But I look at the fixtures of those 4 players and think, well, if Swansea beat Stoke and Villa in the next 2, it's points galore, surely, for Ayew and Gomez if they're both playing. So I'll hold them because of the fixtures. But it can be a trap, can't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. Eggs and basket approach is always going to be high risk, high reward, isn't it? That's just the very nature of it. But looking at the players in isolation, which you have to do, they still look like good moves to double up if the fixtures are right.
Yeah, no, yes indeed. Let's go out on one last question then, and it's the big one. GHB asked, captaincy gamble, is this the week to do it? Because obviously Aguero's out of the equation. Sanchez is the obvious captain choice, but is he? He's just getting off a plane. He's got Bayern on Tuesday. There's doubts about it, maybe. Jonty, to you first. What are you going to do? What's your thoughts?
Well, for me, I'm going to get Pele in, and I'm going to captain him. The reason is I think he's the player that's got the most chance of getting points this week. So fairly obvious move. One of the reasons
always a good logic.
Always a good logic. One of the reasons I think that is because of who they're up against. They're up against Leicester. So we mentioned before about Pele's ability to head goals and Southampton's ability to make crosses. But if you look at goal attempts in the box conceded, Leicester are second to Norwich. So Norwich and Leicester are the worst at that. So if you're looking at chances, Pele's going to get a lot. By the same token, I think Newcastle attackers, if you can call them that, could actually be quite good. If I was going for a punt, Mitrovic would be quite a good punt, because Norwich goal attempts in the box conceded are pretty high. So
you've always got the chance of getting -4 if you captain Mitrovic for the second.
Yeah, there is that chance. There's a big risk, but that's it. Yes, if you're going to take a punt, do it now, because you haven't got everyone captaining Aguero. I actually don't think. I've got Sanchez. I'm happy to have Sanchez. I think with the big Champions League match coming up, he was coming back today. I think Wenger got a text from him saying, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm on the." But anyway, so he'll be back in training tomorrow. So it's not ideal. It's not as ideal as some of the other players. So, and De Bruyne, I think, would be the other one to get. I wouldn't consider him a gamble at all. I think he's absolutely great. I think Man City will score, and I think you're pretty much going to get at least an assist or 2 from him.
Luke, over to you. Are you going with Sanchez? Simple as that, or?
I honestly don't know at this stage. Like you said, there's so many factors weighing on it. I do think, though, Sanchez will play, and probably play about 80 minutes at least, because Wenger's done this before. It always looks like he should be benching Sanchez. I even remember him coming out and saying Sanchez is tired and he shouldn't be playing, and then continuing to play him for 3 or 4 games. And the form he's in, it's hard to argue against it. And there's also the factor if he does get taken off in the 70th minute because they're cruising, he's likely been involved in all of those goals. So I do think Sanchez is the very sensible option and probably the best option. Kevin De Bruyne also a great option, but as already mentioned there, with Aguero out, with the injuries they've got, you're not sure how it will affect them. You don't know if they'll be able to adapt to this Bonnie situation or not quite. So it is a slight risk. The fixture's obviously great. And then in terms of the original question, taking a punt on another player, if you own those two players, if you own KDB and Sanchez, I would say why not? Because you're going to get those points anyway. And Pele does look a great option. Mane looks a great option. Yeah. I mean, maybe even Walcott, but again, Giroud, the risk of Giroud might be a bit too much there. Yeah, a great week to take a punt, I would say, especially if you own those two players in Sanchez and KDB.
Sanchez, I think, will play. I think you're absolutely right. He seems to be a player you can't keep out of the team. Sanchez will go nuts if he's not on that field. But the thing is, Watford aren't giving goals away at home, are they? One at home, I think. So it's tricky.
I did look at that though earlier, and I looked at their home games, which they haven't conceded in. So first of all, you've got West Bromwich Albion, not too tough, I would have said. Southampton was the next one they did, but if you remember, Southampton started extremely poorly. They weren't the team they are now. I'd say they wouldn't keep one now against them. And then they did it against Swansea, which looked good at the time, but Swansea then went on that run of not scoring for about 3 games. So they obviously lacked a bit of impetus. And as soon as they played a team half decent, Palace, they conceded at home. So I wouldn't be so sure that that's going to be the gold standard. I would expect goals from Arsenal in that game, to be honest.
Yeah, no, excellent point. So I'll put a name out there, because I may well go KDB in for the all-out attack. I've got the money to do it and still save some money for defence. I may go Pele, but I'm tempted by Hazard because I just think they're at home to Villa, and I just wonder, Mourinho's rant. Villa are surely there for the taking. I can't see them not conceding.
I don't know about that. Villa and Chelsea, they've got history. Villa do well against Chelsea quite a lot.
I know, but really, I just think Hazard, if he got me points, it could be a big differential for me. So he's the punt I'm looking at possibly, but I will likely play safe. But I'm tempted.
We've got a crystal ball gazer following us on YouTube. Some Bergie Berg. Who 5 minutes ago said Mark's going to captain Hazard.
There you go.
There you go.
He knows me too well. He's listening to I'm tempted. I am tempted, and I don't know. We'll see.
I think he's a reasonable captain. I don't think he's the best captain choice this week, but I think he's a reasonable one. I do think. I think no matter how bad Chelsea's form has been. Villa is worse, and they've got worse players. Chelsea have got better players. So I mean, I would think that Hazard is a fairly good choice.
It's a logical argument in an illogical season. I mean, it's bizarre to think, isn't it? If we look back on last season, where there was a spell where Hazard was captain week in, week out, particularly at home because he wasn't
3 bonus points guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. And we're sitting here going, Hazard at home to Villa is a reasonable captain choice. It's just crazy, isn't it? What has happened this season for us to be saying things like that? You would not believe it, would you? No. Similarly, Harry Kane's not even a name we've mentioned tonight when Aguero's injured. It's just bizarre how with the Premier League at the moment, you think you know it, you think you know how to play fancy Premier League. 6 months, 12 months down the line, everything's changed, and what we thought we know is just out the window. We did know Aguero was fragile, and that has proved incorrect. And yeah, it's put us in this situation. Thanks so much for joining us this evening, Luke, for stepping in for Granville. I hope Granville enjoyed the episode of The Apprentice. I bet it's a good one. He'll be back next week, no doubt, and we'll see you next time that Granville struck down with a cold. Jonty, you battled through your cold.
Yeah, I've got a cold. Yeah, I mean, I'll collapse in a heap of Lemsips after this. But yeah, no, some of us can struggle on.
We'll give Granville a hard time, only because he's beaten us. Yeah. It's a good night for me.
Good night from me.
Good night from me.
Good night all.